about a week away to the National in Chicago, and joined by my yearly annual visit with Rich Miller from Sports Collectors Daily. And Rich, it seems the year has gone fast.
Yeah, it just seems like we got out of Cleveland and and here we are again for another edition of the big show. But yeah, Chicago's going to be kind of a residence now for the show for the next 3 years. So no more moving around for a little while. We'll have either Atlanta or Detroit in 2028, I believe it is. So, but for now, at least it's headquartered right there in the middle of the country.
Yeah, 3 year run in Chicago. You think that's a good thing, where they can keep working out the kinks as the years go on, and with whether it be internet or air conditioning or getting more vendors, dealers in the building. I think they've been proactive with some things.
Yeah, and I think, it gives them an opportunity to kind of maybe work on some things that they can carry over from year to year. I know they're big on doing a lot of charity type things, and that enables them to maybe connect with those groups and be there for more than one quick fleeting week, or weekend even. So that's a good thing, and I think it's much easier if you're dealing with the same building year in and year out. And I've heard a lot of people say that they wish they would make Chicago the full-time host for it, because obviously, it's kind of halfway in between the country, for whether you're coming from the East Coast or West Coast. All kinds of planes fly into Chicago. It's the busiest airport around, and so the building can hold it. There's hotels nearby, obviously tons to do. So those are all good things. People do complain that it doesn't come to the West Coast anymore, which is true. It hasn't been there since 2006. But I think all things considered, it's pretty tough to find a better location than where it is right now.
And a venue that can handle it now. Now we're down. There's probably maybe what I've heard 6 or 7 venues in the country now that can actually hold it. That are.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of requirements, to hold the national, and I've done some stories about that, and how they aren't able to come to some cities or even consider them because of what their requirements are for the show, and there's a lot of different things involved there. But I think the one thing we do know is that Cleveland is out. First of all, the venue, the IX Center, just as it proved last year, is not quite big enough to handle what the National has become. If it ever shrinks again, I suppose it's a possibility, or it would have been a possibility. But now the IX Center is being turned into something completely different. It's not going to be a convention center anymore. It's going to turn into a data center.
Yeah.
So I think the days of having any conventions there are probably over. It was a good host when it was there, but the 2024 show made it pretty clear that it just isn't big enough to handle the type of attendance that the National now has, with well over 100,000 people coming over the 5-day period. It's another kind of Midwestern, Mideastern type location, which is good for the majority of the country that lives east of the Mississippi. But you got to have a venue to where it's comfortable for people to spend. Whether they come for 2 days or 5 days or even longer if you're a dealer setting up. And Chicago offers that a little bit better than Cleveland does or did.
Yeah, with Rich Miller, Sports Collectors Daily, talking about the 45th National, the Donald E. Stephens Convention Center once again in Chicago. And any themes, Rich, you're thinking this year? It's kind of wide open.
Yeah, I think the modern card market has really taken over a lot of the industry. If you go to shows, even local shows, regional shows, you see a ton of modern cards. Not quite as much vintage anymore. The vintage market is still pretty good, but you have a lot of new people getting in, and their entry is, of course, new cards. Whether they're buying them at the local retail shop, whether they're buying them in a break online, or whether they're going to their local hobby shop or wherever they're getting their cards. That's the entry point for a lot of people. And you have a lot of young people who would rather deal in the cards of players who are active now or just recently retired. So that's really kind of become the growth behind the whole industry, whether you're talking shows or card shops or breaking or whatever it is. That's where the boost has come from, really, more than anything else. So I think you'll see, as we did last year, that end of things kind of dominates. I shouldn't say dominates the show floor, but it's definitely become more of a modern era show, modern era type of show. And you see a lot of corporate presence that kind of leans that way too, whether it's online price guides or whatever it may be. So I think that's part of it. And I think, you're going to see maybe more Pokemon and stuff like that too. The grading numbers have become really dominant for Pokemon and TCG cards. I'm a sports guy. I don't know anything about that stuff, but I know that it's become a really, really big, popular thing, and there is crossover there. If you go to a show or a shop, the TCG Pokemon guys and girls are everywhere, and so that I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot more of that at the National. Not to say it's going to dominate by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely has a much bigger presence no matter where you are.
Yeah, a couple of the regional shows I went to in the last year, Vegas here and LA, the Pokemon aisles were just jammed. And which was fine with me. I stay away from that anyway. But they were absolutely jammed.
Well, the good thing is, I guess, if you collect that stuff, you know that Pikachu is not going to break an ankle or something, go on the disabled list. It's pretty stable market, at least in terms of that.
No, he's not needing Tommy John surgery.
No.
I don't think so. But sports-wise, in the news recently, autograph issues. A big scandal that is just kind of starting to unravel, more and more information coming out. How do you think that affects buyers and sellers' attitudes when it comes to autographs?
Well, it certainly does have the potential to be a pretty significant development. We don't really know at the time we're recording this, what exactly the extent of it is, because the police really haven't said anything yet. The FBI is involved, but at this point, all we really know is what the person who put this stuff out there has admitted to now. Is he exaggerating to kind of go out in a blaze of glory?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's certainly possible the numbers that he posted in his Facebook manifesto, I guess it was, and you feel terrible for his family, but this guy, obviously, even if it's a smaller level than what he's talking about, this guy was responsible for pushing a lot of fakes in the market. And the thing with this is, these are not just, this isn't just a guy who, wrote his own forgeries. He was duplicating to a very technologically advanced method of recreating signatures and recreating the certificates of authenticity to go with them. So it's going to become very, very difficult, at least in the near term, to understand and to be able to sort out, where all these things are, how prevalent is it, how prevalent is the bad stuff, and how good was it, and how long did we kind of know how long he did it. According to, he says, 20 years, and he's been selling online obviously since the 2010s at the very least. So yeah, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. I wouldn't want to be an autograph collector right now unless I'm somebody who just gets autographs in person, and I've seen them signed, and I hopefully have some photographic evidence of it being signed. But at the very least, maybe not trading in the big names, the big expensive names that are often the targets of those forgers.
That's why, even though you're paying a premium, getting your items autographed at the National is really a safe way to do it.
It is, yeah, and you have a ticket that's kind of part of your proof of the signing, and you have the fact that the guy signed it right in front of you, and the thing is with autographs, everyone is different. The guys are pretty good about signing their names very consistently, but everyone is just a little bit different than the next one, and so that's kind of something that benefits the authenticators and things like that. If they see little things that are maybe, they can tell the autograph is authentic, but it's also something to where the guys are human. The people who are signing the autographs are human, so they're not going to be as consistent, as if you have even if it's an auto pen where they're stamping it on there and the signature is done with the type of ink that you often see on autographs. If everyone is the same, as it always is in those circumstances, that's the way you to tell, but to be able to get those all together in one place and say, oh, these are all the same, they must all be big, that's a big undertaking. So I don't know how this is all going to play out, but there's a lot to consider when it comes to all this stuff. It's going to be a difficult process for everybody to sort through.
Yeah, I don't know either. And last thing, you mentioned the modern cards really dominating. Are we getting to a saturation point again, do you think? Or is this what the consumers and collectors want? I see there's no less than maybe 20 or so different companies doing breaks at the show, and they're popular. And what's the saturation point, do you think?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're seeing new cards with massive population numbers in graded, in holders and grading company holders that, Zion Williamson just has had a massive number of cards signed because everybody was kind of banking on him being a big superstar. And he's still a good player when he's healthy, but he hasn't reached the levels that a lot of people thought he was. And you look at a guy like Will Levis, who's the quarterback for the Titans, and now he's injured and he's going to miss the season. And I know there were a lot of people that, when he was a rookie, put a lot of money into his cards, and it's just, that's the risk you take. But there are so many brands. I mean, even though we're down to one licensed manufacturer now, and that's going to switch over from Panini to Fanatics here, in the next several months. But I think I think people have to take a long look at how much product is being produced for every single player, and you have to wonder how long that can last, because it takes a lot of new collectors coming in to be able to gobble up this stuff and not wind up having a lot on the market, which we've already seen with cards, some of the graded cards, base rookie cards of players that are popular in the moment. So, it's something definitely history has taught us with the junk wax era. And this is a little bit different. It's bigger. The market is much bigger, and it's more spread out. But there are some lessons there to learn that that quantity is not necessarily the best part of being a collector. Is there's something to be said for quality too.
And I think the collectors are more educated now too. So
yeah, absolutely. I think the former era, the junk wax era, all played out before the internet, and now there's so much information that's shared online instantaneously or within a short period of time. And we have population reports, and we know how much product generally is being produced, maybe not to the exact number, but we can get a sense by seeing things. And there is a lot of variety in the new market. You don't have to be a guy that creates base cards. You don't have to be someone that collects autographed cards. You can be kind of in the middle, or you can take it a bunch of different ways. You can be a team collector, just say, I want one guy, one player, one card from every guy that's ever played for my team. So there's a million different ways you can do it. It's just, be careful not to buy a regular box of Topps and think you're going to get a bunch of hits out of it. So that's why, like you said, education is so important. You have to know the product, what's in the product. If you're just after hits, don't buy a product that doesn't guarantee a bunch of hits. Don't expect there to be great stuff that comes out of when I say great, I mean stuff that has relics and autographs and all that. Don't expect that from a product that's built for the traditional collector who just likes to collect sets, because that's the big part of it. You have to know what you're buying.
Yeah, can't go wrong with graded vintage stuff, though. Is always my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. That's been a really, and I'm writing something today about the 2000 National Sports Collectors Convention, which was in Anaheim, and a lot of the talk online back then, not online, but in the newspapers back then, was about graded cards and how much they had become a bigger thing since grading was kind of entered the sports card market in the 92, 93 era was when it first kind of came out. But by 2000, there were a lot of people that had bought into that, and so they were mentioning that the fact that the internet was here now, even though it wasn't quite as big of a deal as it is now, it did make for a much easier way to buy, sell, and trade cards, because you have graded, third-party authentication. There wasn't any dispute over a card's grade. If you're, you say my Mickey Mantle card is near mint and you get it and it's, this is more like VG. If the grader has put a 4 on it or a 5 on it or a 6 on it, then, that's a third-party objective opinion that mostly people can agree on, even though there's minuscule
Yeah.
differences or differences of opinion. But yeah, it certainly made it a much more organized market for sure, and vintage has really benefited from that. It's not perfect, but I think it's made it a lot easier to transact business with graded vintage cards.
Yep, wrapping up with Rich. The Nationals just days away, and wear comfortable shoes and carry some water and snacks in your backpack. Rich, is that always a must?
Yeah, those are the big ones. Don't forget to sit down and take a break once in a while,
Yeah.
and just kind of take a breath. But there's so much to see. It's such a. I always tell people it's like a baseball card show and a jumbo jet hangar. It's just from one end to the other. And this year now they've added even 75 more dealers who have been on the waiting list. They're going to have just 8-foot booths instead of the 10 by 15 that all the other dealers get. But that's expanded to the second level, so you'll see more people behind booths, and so it's bigger than ever for sure. And if you're just planning on coming for a day, don't expect to see everything.
No.
It's really too tough to maneuver that way. But you'll definitely be entertained, and there'll be something to do for you for at least a day, and hopefully you can make it a couple days or more.
And if people want to find out all the Sports Collectors Daily coverage, Rich, where should they go?
Yep, sportscollectorsdaily.com. We actually launched way back before that last West Coast National back in 2006. So it's been 19 years now of covering the show and covering the hobby in general. And so you can find us there on the website, sportscollectorsdaily.com, or I'm on I'll say Twitter, but it's X now at Sports Collector, and I'm on Instagram. Don't do a ton on Instagram, but we are there under Sports Collectors Daily, so you can connect with us all any of those ways.
Yep, always good. We'll see you in a few days, and safe travels.
All right, you too. Thanks, Rick.